Well, good morning. Breakfast at the Broker every Tuesday morning at 9 a.m. We are over here at Pod Populi in East Boca Raton at Royal Palm Place. And I have a very, very special guest. And now, by way of Boca Raton, Florida, she is the executive director of luxury sales for Compass. She also was the driving force behind launching one of the Palm Beach County's most luxurious residential high-rise projects, the Bristol. She's a team leader of a concierge service team known as the CBG team. The CBG team closed more than $361 million in 2021. Give it up for Marisela Cotilla.
Oh my gosh, David, what a great intro.
Why, thank you.
That makes me feel special, so thank you.
You're definitely special because I'll tell you what, the Bristol, we'll just get right into it. The Bristol is one of the premier projects that have been in South Florida for, as long as I can remember. Tell us a little bit about the Bristol and, how you got involved.
So interesting enough, I was a director of sales, but I was also playing director of operations and opening up offices for Douglas Elliman at the time. I was given the opportunity to do a presentation, okay, to win obviously assignments, and one of them was a group of developers that was pretty much unknown. And I say unknown because they had not developed anything in Florida.
Wow.
So in comes Al Adelson, who in himself became the face of the Bristol. He's impressive. He's amazing. He's a deal maker, and I adore him. Al is a developer from Michigan and did a lot of and owned a tremendous amount of industrial real estate. He had a best friend, and you'll know the team that is the Gallup Companies, Eugene Gallup out of Chicago, and also extremely impressive. The Gallup Companies is responsible for most of the buildings, not only building, but managing and overseeing many of the high rises in Chicago. And it's a family owned company, very impressive as well. And then locally, they had Elion Partners, who were really silent partners. They're out of Aventura, Miami. And it was very interesting. In truth, they actually controlled a piece of property that no one ever thought would be sold. And interesting, it was just a little bit over, I think, 3.5 acres. And it was the chapel on the lake, and it was owned by the church across the street.
Wow.
So the story goes is three Jewish guys walked into a church and said, "I want to buy this piece of property." And it's a visionary story. It's a story about the gentleman that said, "I have a vision, and we want something shiny and new, and there's nothing like it on the other side of the bridge."
Yeah, and there's nothing like their prices right now as well.
Nothing, nothing.
For those listening and viewing, I don't know that people understand that, how special the Bristol is, but, the prices certainly reflect that. Do you have an idea of how what the prices are currently?
So right now you've got a couple of, I'm going to say, there's a couple of quiet listings that may be coming online, but you're talking in excess of over 3,000
Yeah,
per
wow.
square foot. But interesting enough, the Bristol broke records from the beginning. It averaged 1,800 a square foot. Okay, average. That means that our lowest at any time was about 5 million. And that was entry point, right? That was just, it was a lower level. And then it went high. It's a wedding cake design. It was designed by Solomon Coldwell and Bwenz out of Chicago. And by wedding cake is that the top of the building actually comes down a couple of levels. So it's smaller at the top penthouses and then gradually gets bigger.
Oh,
Okay. So the penthouses are only about 6,000 square feet each.
mm-hmm.
And then the middle of building has about, I want to say the floor plate was about 14,500.
Wow.
So it varied. It was impressive. It was, again, visionary. And the challenge, there's always a challenge in real estate. Marketing the Bristol meant that we had to bring buyers from Palm Beach, right, into another zip code.
Mm-hmm.
And It was called the Bristol Palm Beach. A lot of people took, offense to that, but in reality, Palm Beach is a county,
Sure.
and it was in Palm Beach County.
Mhm,
Now, the one who did that before us and showed us that it could be done was One Watermark,
mhm.
but that was traditional Mediterranean look. This was modern, steel, glass, and just sexy.
Yep. It's amazing, as you're looking through projects, through South Florida and whatnot, and upcoming projects and whatnot. How, as a director or executive director of luxury, how did you get involved in luxury real estate? Because real estate agents come in, and as you said, the building's sexy, so is luxury, right? So luxury is is the talk of the town. Everyone wants to be luxury. And how do you get involved and position yourself so that maybe you are the go-to person for whether it's luxury buildings, luxury, single family homes and such?
It's a $1 million question, or in today's world, maybe
Yeah,
10 million or
yeah.
a billion.
A million's not
A
nothing
million's
these days.
nothing. Interesting enough, my path, we all take different paths. I actually was in commercial real estate. I actually worked for big brands, CB Richard Ellis,
Sure.
early on, Kadena Bush Klein, the Bush being Jeb Bush. I worked with Marcus and Millichap to learn multifamily. So I came from a different, really, walk. So, in essence, when I stepped into luxury, and it was via being a director of regional, assisting Douglas Elliman in their expansion, it was very comfortable for me because I had always dealt with the CEOs and CFOs and the heads of companies. The only thing that was new to me, believe it or not, was dealing with the wives. It's interesting, right? Because when I deal with corporate America, I'm dealing with logistics. I'm dealing with a different conversation than I'm dealing with the color of the kitchen. And
Emotion gets involved.
oh my gosh, a lot of emotion, a lot of emotion. But I would say for agents today, the challenge is pivoting. Every so many years, I reinvent myself. Every so many years, I get better, as you do. You can't stay in this game and status quo because the market's continuing to change. So, what I would say is that luxury looks like luxury, dresses like luxury, entertains like luxury. And by that, I mean there's a lot more dollars going into that effort, in that representation. So, it's not the only way to make money. It's certainly not the only way to make a mark. It just so happens to be it's where CBG is comfortable. And
Sure.
CBG, again, we're three partners of equal values and equal partnerships. So we're three bosses, right? Three owners. So it's very different. And all of us have played in the game of luxury. But for agents, it's not the only way to make money. In fact, I used to say when I was hiring agents, they'd come in and they say to me, I want to sell luxury. And I said, great, great, great. What do you define luxury as? As you just mentioned,
Right.
today, $1 million is everything and anything.
Sure.
So they'd say, well, I want to be on the beach, east, selling everything there. And I go, well, turn around and look west. Because believe it or not, there's a lot more that way.
Yeah.
Make sense?
No, agreed. Absolutely. Let's talk a little bit about your partnership because, in a day and age where teams are a big deal, right?
Yeah.
Real estate agents are teaming up and putting together teams, and we've always had partnerships. My mom was a realtor for 30 some odd years. My dad was a managing broker for, coal banker for many many years, and they've always had partnerships. They've always had two people or three people getting together for one, common cause and going forward. The mistake that I think most people make nowadays is that, all right, I'm going to be the team leader and now I'm going to have all these team members, and they forget how to manage them or don't know how to manage them or don't have the right people in place to manage them. But the second thing is that two people or three people get together and they don't have the same ideas, or this is mine, this is 100% mine, this is 50% mine, this is 25% mine. How did you three come together to make one common, amazing team?
So I guess this could be a dating question. So, because a lot of it is a relationship. And early on, I met Scott Giroux and I met Rochelle Baresh working at Alina. I was director of sales, and I met these two amazing individuals that, in my mind, had a very high level of professionalism, ethics, knowledge, and they were the total package. So we got to work with each other for a while, and then everyone's looking for someone. I'm back to the dating game, right? I've been married for 47 years. In fact, I
Wow,
just celebrated,
congratulations.
thank you. I just celebrated my anniversary last week.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I think what people understand, a partnership in business is like a marriage. And every relationship, you have to develop and continue to foster it and grow. The common element of a business partnership has to be ethics, professionalism, and strength of a brand. The way we came together was pretty much we had all that. I like to say that somewhere in our careers, we should bring all our efforts and skills to one table. Now, Scott, Rochelle, and I, the only way that I could see that working is if we're equal. Equal. That means that in a equal partnership, that means that you split everything right down the middle. And that one leads when the skill asks for it and one sits back like a dance. It's choreographed. The truth is, though, when the music starts, we never know who's going to lead.
Right.
You never know because you don't know what skill is necessary at that time. But I would say it is the hardest thing to find is partnerships. And if you start by saying, by the way, there's three of us, two of us, if there's a vote, two go. You agree on that. If I don't agree on a certain marketing piece, they agree, it goes. So the process cannot be slowed down.
Sure. So, are those expectations written down? Is that something that you obviously you discuss and have meetings and such? But how do you prevent because partnerships inevitably fail, right?
Right,
Inevitably they get terminated at some point.
right.
And most of the time it's because someone believes that they're doing more than the other person or people and start to inject that emotion into the partnership. How do you prevent that or how do you combat that?
So the first question, was there a prenup?
Yeah.
And interesting enough, I'm all about documentation. I think real estate, as you know, as obviously you're second generation,
Second generation, yeah.
second generation. So it's about documentation. It's about accountability.
I don't wish the third generation because I'm not sure that I want my kids to deal
Yeah,
with this
I
business.
know. I
I didn't
you
mean to
know,
cut you off.
I agree with you. I cannot. It's too hard of a business. I usually tell everybody if you start this business, make sure you have lots of checks and don't worry about the deposit
Yeah,
tickets.
you're absolutely right.
Don't worry about that. I think what we started to write it down because I've had partnerships in the past. I've had lots of agreements, and the agreement's only as good as what's written on the paper. But truth, it's about the individuals. We to date, we've been together for 2.5 years, a little bit more, and that we've known each other. We've not had one disagreement. We have not had to sit there and say, hey, you did this, I did that. No. In fact, it's fallen into where each one knows their role. Um, you can't see me, listeners, but I've earned my gray and I've kept it. And I am the older, not senior in that regard, because we all have so much um, knowledge in this industry that it's actually when we get into a meeting, it is so much fun. It is so much fun. And I am so proud to sit with them and have them at my sides. And that's what it comes down to, right? Can you walk into a room, own it? Can you walk into a room and be proud of who sits next to you and is speaking on your behalf when you're not there? If you can't say that, it's not a partnership. Think of, are you're married?
Yeah, I am.
Okay, so
20 over 20 years.
that's fantastic. So think about it. Do you, at this stage, talk about who's going to the grocery store and who's putting away the groceries?
No, absolutely not.
No,
You just do it.
you just do it. You
Yep.
do what has to be done. If there's a spill on the floor, I'll be the first one to pick up a mop. If something has to be vacuumed, we either one of us will do it. We'll change filters. We built furniture because I said, I'm not going to pay someone to do this. I can do this. Took me longer, by the way. I should have paid. Um, but I think it's important. I have always taken tremendous pride at the table I sit in is very important. And who sits with me at that table is very important. It's more important than money because you and I, we have a reputation. People
Sure.
hire us because they trust us. Nobody can ruin that.
Agreed. Yeah. I mean, reputation and integrity is certainly in this close knit community is so important. And there'll be disruptors and people coming in and out of here, and and saying, hey, I could do it this way and whatnot, and you know what, better for them. But they're also, we have a saying, LIFO, last in, first out.
That's it.
And
Inventory.
yep,
Inventory.
yep.
And I used to say that as well. And I was always first in, last out, which really speaks to lousy inventory if you think about it, because that means you didn't sell it. But in reality, you're right. You have a process. But I think as we grow older, and I think as we continue to pivot, and today's technology, social media in particular, has changed the way we do business, that it behooves myself and others to stop and listen when someone does have a better idea.
Imagine that.
Can you imagine
I mean,
that?
imagine if we were listening to different perspectives and seeking those different perspectives that we've had, generations of, I look at my parents' generation. I mean, that's what we did, is what we, even as a kid, I wanted to find out not the same position or the
Right.
same issue, or, I don't want your same stance. I wanted to actually seek a different perspective. Why
Sure.
do you think like that on this issue? Why do you think like that on that issue? And we've now we're basically seeking fulfillment of or proof and evidence that we were right and someone else was wrong. And I say this all the time because I remember my daughter went to Donna Klein Jewish Academy.
Sure.
And the first day I walked in to bring my daughter in kindergarten, and I looked up at the sign and it said, it's not what is right, it's who is, not who is right, is what is right. And I always looked at it and said, that is a perfect term for our society today,
It
right? Like
is.
we need to start worrying about or worrying less about who's right, and doing the right thing.
I think you're right. And it's easier. And what happens is too many of us are fighting for ownership. And so when you have, even going back to the partnership, um, we stand together, right? So if we fail together. If we win together. And that's the same philosophy we take into a client.
Sure.
When we represent you. And if we are representing correctly, you win. And so do we.
Sure. And getting back to your partnership, because I think it's fascinating, in successful partnerships, because, so many of them fail, right? And whether they, come together for the right reasons, normally, they have the right or good intentions, and they fail for, a myriad of reasons. Uh, you know, Looking at how partnerships get started, how did you get started with that partnership? Like, we talked about a little bit about the prenup or whatever. Did you put a policy? Did you put managing expectations? Because so many people are so afraid to losing what they've earned for the last 10 or 15 or 20 years, and they don't believe in the big picture. They don't believe in, it's going to be greater than what they made previously, and certainly they're going to have to suffer and sacrifice in the very beginning.
You have to sacrifice to win and to expand. So I think early on, what we talked about is we all came with numbers, big numbers. We also do quite a bit of development and representation, which assists in getting those numbers. I think what's important and what we spoke about is that expectation of what we'd like to achieve because we did a couple of things. We became partners. We all left Douglas Elliman to move into Compass. So there was right there was a change.
Mhm.
Right now, we owned our office and our location. We have a privately owned office, so it's ours. Our location was ours, and we control the environment, the culture, and the feel of that office. That's important,
Very, yeah,
very important. So we all walk in with, let's get to work. By the way, we walk in every day, every day. It's not about, hey, listen, I'm going to be home for a week. I'll see you Tuesday. You want to have a meeting? No, no, no. We turn around, our chairs swivel. It's an open environment, and we talk every day. So, starting with that, it was important for us to set a dollar amount. And then it was strategic. How much do we send in the efforts of single family? How much do we spend in the efforts of chasing developments? One is a long term lead, one is a long term income stream. I call it the later funnel. The earlier one is when you're doing single family, when you think, okay, I'm going to approach it this way. And this is a 35, 45-day payout. So it's a very different because you got to pay the bills.
sure.
And it's great and you can have fun, you can have coffee, you can have wine, you can have champagne. Doesn't matter, you got to pay the bills. So how do you get to that? Then the second thing is marketing efforts. How much do we spend in marketing? So maybe it starts with an Excel. It starts with an expectation of a percentage of that cash flow and what you're going to invest in the company to A, administratively, B, do you bring in other people? By the way, I think that's the biggest mistake. A, no one today does everything. So to sit there as one person under one name and say everything goes through me is a huge mistake, because that's not how people perceive skills. I can't do everything. I know what I'm good at.
Sure.
I know what Scott's great at. I know what Rochelle's amazing at. And frankly, there are days that I'm the weakest link. There are days that I might be the strongest. But the key is being able to understand that without the other, like a puzzle, it doesn't come together. So there's no argument, but you have to have an understanding of the skills. You do have to have that.
And respect, right? You got to
Oh my
respect
gosh.
those, people around you. And, I mean, there's so many times, motivation and, people tell you all the time, you're guilty by association. You're, who you, hang out with, who you,
We told
um,
our kids that, didn't we?
yeah, all the
All the
time,
time.
all the time. And, and sometimes, it's funny because you alluded to that with the kids thing, but, sometimes there are disruptors within the kids' friendships, right? And, how they inject in the communication of kids to kids and, who's coming in, who's not coming in and all the drama and stuff. And then they kind of relate it to our brokerage. So,
Yeah, no, no, no. You're 100% correct. In fact, we have brought in certain agents that we thought we could mentor. The problem is if they become disruptors, then it's not the right person.
no.
In fact, I almost believe that you should bring somebody in with a clean slate and teach them. Teach
Yeah,
them.
no, I agree as well because there, over the years as you get wiser and managing your brokerage, you definitely um it's addition by subtraction.
Yeah,
And a lot of times we will find someone who is disruptive, and we just it upsets the apple cart too much that it's just not worth it,
not worth it.
and really, every time that I've ever subtracted someone, I've added 7 other people. It's amazing how that happens because, it puts a fire in your belly, and
It
and you
does.
and you start actually recruiting, because you're supposed to spend some time recruiting as well. But
You are,
yeah,
but to that point, you can only recruit if you have a process.
sure.
You can only recruit if the people sitting at the head of the table are comfortable in understanding their leadership roles. And so if you bring someone in to chaos, then you're just going to get more chaos.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed 100%. Well, I can't thank you enough for coming on, and I have 2 questions.
Certainly.
And it's always my final 2 questions of
Tell me.
episodes. So, what is your favorite all-time streaming series or movie, if you prefer, and what are you currently watching?
That's interesting because nowadays I really find that there's a lot of things that are weak. And I find I'm disappointed. So, streaming a movie, when I want to laugh and my husband wants to laugh with me and he laughs much louder than I do, it's got to be my cousin Vinny.
Oh, I love him. Yeah.
Okay, it's got to be my cousin Vinny because it's his humor. And by the way, because our lives are so complicated and serious in what we do every day, I got to sit in front of something that's funny. Don't put anything serious in front of me. I don't have time for it.
Right.
If I'm going to be entertained, make me laugh. So streaming, and by the way, that's something new to my world a couple of years ago. I don't know about you all listeners, but I think the series on Abby,
Downtown Abbey?
Downtown
Yeah.
Abbey.
Oh, yeah.
I think I find that fascinating.
Yeah. Oh, very cool. Well, I can't thank you enough for coming on, and I appreciate all the good work in the industry and the professionalism. It's about collaboration like this,
It is.
and it's not about competition. It's about helping each other and grow each other's businesses and creating relationships just as you would do with consumers. So I appreciate you coming in.
Always a pleasure to sit with a professional.
Oh,
Thank you,
well,
David.
thank you. And where can we find you?
So CBG is right here, 307 Southeast Meisner. We're right here in East Boca. Our office is on the corner across from Farmhouse. Stop by, say hello, have coffee. We're big on coffee, and I look forward to seeing you.
Absolutely. And I think you have a podcast too.
We do. The Sunny Side. We actually air it every Sunday, Monday, and it's fantastic. I'll invite you to it.
I
And
appreciate it.
it's the three of us having a coffee chat, and it's great.
Love it. Love it. Well, thanks again. Breakfast with the Broker every Tuesday at 9 a.m. I will be up in Orlando next week, visiting Florida realtors as a committee work and governance work and all that kind of stuff. So certainly appreciate it. See you next week on Breakfast with the Broker at Tuesday, 9 a.m.
Perfect. Thank you so much.